This is Stonkington. I wanted to create a video based on the watch list I made for Friday and how you could have used it, kind of how I come up with the levels, and I'm just going to get right into it here. So, Netflix was on the list going into Friday. Here's a daily chart. I have it on a replay. So, this is what the chart looked like Thursday after the market closed when I made the list. The reason I was interested in Netflix is this is the daily chart. This is a daily inside bar. Really nice compression, just meaning it popped on the daily inside bar scanner because the price action on Thursday was fit within this bar right there from Wednesday. So I always start on the daily chart, see if we have any like longer term patterns, not anything jumping out. You could maybe like, this could be like some kind of bear pennant deal, but nothing really distinct. And then as far as inside bars go, this could be your levels right here, which would just be the high and low of this candle. So let's set that up really quick. So that could be a watch list play right there, is just, maybe round this up, whole numbers, go to 176.6. And so you could take the break of this to the upside or the break of this to the downside, and that's it, because anyone during Thursday's price action that went short, if we went above, they'd be red on their trade. You could start seeing some stop losses, and then the opposite for anyone who went long. If we broke the low, they'd be red. So we would be looking for a stop loss flush. Inside bars, just basically support and resistance. So for me, I've mentioned a few times in my recaps, my trading style, I'm a very short-term trader because I have other things going on during the day. I'm working. So I'm just not able to manage trades throughout the whole day or wait, for an inside bar like that to break. So what I'll do is I'll zoom in here. So here for these key levels, this looks important right here, this 171. We'll just call it 171.85. I like to add in, this might not be the trigger, but I like to add in price targets. So say, for example, I'd round that one out. So I'll just have a line there, and then again, probably get something like there, 174.4, probably be a good level to keep an eye on if we break to the upside. And let's see, so this is basically the process I have going. Ultimately, I ended up using 174.45 as the call trigger, so I'll just make that a solid green line. It's a good reminder for me. And then we got some dark pool on and Netflix. I always make those golds, just kind of helps me as a visual reminder, and it came in at 173.35. So with the aftermarket price action, we drifted a little bit above that, so I used that as my put trigger, and we probably want to get a price target for the upside move. Up here would probably be something like this, 175.55, just based on, I learned from Kang, you don't want to just use the wicks. The bodies are really important because that's where the volume is. And then I'll also kind of look for some little trend lines we could add in here. Seeing some kind of wedge that looks like we could do a line that would go something like this. So that's like a trend line there, and then a similar coming down here through the upside, something like that. So just a really nice wedge setup on Netflix. This is, again, we're using a replay here, so this is what the price action on Netflix looked like going into Friday, where it was on the watch list with calls above this level here, the green line 174.45, and then 173.35. So I put that list out on Discord. I put it out on Twitter. So then, the important part would be how would you trade this when we go into live market price action, because that's the important part. So if we kind of get this going here. All right, so this would be the Netflix chart setup going into the open on Friday morning. So yellow highlighted would be pre-market data. Just kind of got it set up there to really see clearly. So it kind of popped the wedge and then came back down. So we'd be opening within my watch list range there to start the day. Basically, we will see what we get here as the price action starts going. So kind of walk through what the mindset would be for trying to trade Netflix today. So just right out of the bat, so it pops this watch list level basically in the first 3-minute candle. So for me, basically that is the signal to do nothing. It's tempting to take a watch list break right off the bat, but it's risky at the open. There's just a lot of repositioning. It's a lot of fake outs. I mean, yes, if you instantly got in, again, this is a 3-minute chart, so if you instantly got in on the break, you could be green here, but then you're seeing a big red candle come in. So there's just a lot more risk involved. And again, we always say wait for retest. So the thought behind that is basically, we don't know how strong this level is going to be right out of the gate at open. I mean, personally, I've tried to trade the first break, and it's just sometimes it works. It's just less consistent than this strategy that I learned from Swan, where you wait for the retest. So if we keep this going, we see, so it's still, it's chopping around, start to look for like pattern setups and whatnot. So here I'm starting to see this could turn into some kind of falling wedge. So just to get the trend lines in here, this is starting to set up. So I've had a lot more success once I kind of stopped waiting for or stopped taking that initial break that we saw and waiting for like a more defined pattern, and using that in including with what EVXY, what SPY is doing. I've just had a lot more success than trying to take that initial break. So I'd be watching that. Okay, so here we're waiting for this retest, and now we're getting it. So here's the reaction for the second time for that level, and it broke, so it didn't hold. So I'd be kind of caution here, because it's hanging out on this level. But so here we go. So this dark pool, huge value in black box, so we knew that it couldn't break below. So it kind of invalidated this flag, tried to get back in. So this candle, I mean, either of these candles here where we see we close above this level, that's where I'm thinking, okay, we've got a potential move to the upside here. We closed above. Another interesting thing specific to Friday was that there was a lot of broker issues. So in this kind of 7 a.m. time frame here, a lot of brokers were showing bid-ask spread issues. They weren't matching up. So I wasn't really touching anything on Friday morning during this time frame, because I knew that brokerages were just kind of all jacked up. But from just strictly a technical watch list perspective, I would be doing nothing through all of this, waiting for that like clear reaction. I mean, here could have even been a buy signal to go to the upside, and then kind of based on what Swan taught me, your other watch list trigger would be your stop. So even if you used this where we closed and held above, using the other watch list trigger as your stop, I mean, you'd be red by the time you got here, but you'd still be in the trade just based on that technical perspective. So the other step we can take at this point would be to update this flag. You could set this up to show that we are still here in this wedge until this point where we break back above the watch list trigger and then close above. So you could have taken here when it closed above the level, and then using Swan's method, you could have even had a 3-bar trade, which would have been green, and then using Swan's method of the other watch list trigger as your stop, you would have been red by this point if you went long, but you wait wouldn't stop out until you broke the other watch list trigger, and then we get that moved back to the upside. So updating the flags, that would look like that's what that would look like. So this is the simplified version of using strictly the watch list triggers. The other things that I like to use as I post in Discord as well as my Twitter would be some of these indicators over here. So I would also be adding in VWAP, which is great to use as support and resistance. So if we look here, if you took this long when it broke and held above, you'd be hitting resistance, so you could use this as a 3-bar trade, and then we push back down. The other really great indicator I got from Bender here is EMAs. It changes the EMAs based on your time frame. So when I'm on shorter time frames, I got the 9 EMA green, 34 is red, and then the 89 is gold. So if I zoomed out to a 1-hour chart or daily chart, I'm going to swap over to some of these other EMAs that just based on using this really helpful script from Bender. So I always mention I'm looking for a 9 EMA crossing VWAP. So this could have even been a signal to go short, which would have been a trade that would work. Also looking for the 9 EMA to cross the 34 and the 89. So this could have been your signal to go back long. Or again, a really powerful one would be using the 9 EMA crossing VWAP. So there we see it to the upside. And as an options trade, this is a really nice trade to the upside. And then I'll also add in orb. I like to use these dotted lines for orb to differentiate between the watch list lines that I have that are solid. And it's also interesting to see that the lower orb exactly lines up with the dark pool level that we had there, 173.75, which is just, again, to highlight the value of using the black box service, because we see, again, this closed above right there. So ultimately, using the watch list, the goal, it's great, to have a multi 100% trade, but it's not necessarily realistic every single time. For me personally, I have other stuff going on during the day, so goal is to just, even walking away 20%, 30%, those are good gains, and you want to use your stops, move your stops up throughout the day, and just walking away with some green, that's ultimately the goal. So that's the recap from Netflix on June 17th, and I'll be looking out for some setups moving into this next week.